right, welcome to Look Both Ways with David and Wes, pragmatic conversations about all things transportation. We're recording this via live stream, live on YouTube. You can always find our episodes on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. So I'm Wes Marshall, and with me is...
David Zipper. Hi.
Hi. And last week, we got to hang out together down in Fort Lauderdale.
We did. That was super fun. My first time actually ever in Fort Lauderdale. It's very sunny. There's a lot of water.
There is.
That's my insightful comment, really.
We did take a water taxi tour, and we heard a lot about the real estate along that water taxi tour.
And we saw a manatee. Come on, that was the exciting part. We saw a manatee.
And I had no idea how much you love manatees. That was news to me. And your wife. Okay. You guys both love manatees. Big fans.
Yeah. This is actually an important diversion. This is my public service to podcast listeners. If you have the chance to swim with manatees, you will not regret it. My wife and I did this in near Crystal River, Florida. You do it in the winter. They're in the springs. These animals are the friendliest, sweetest things ever. And it was sublime. So when I saw one with you in Fort Lauderdale, Wes, I lost my mind. I'm not embarrassed about it.
He jumped up. It was amazing. So the opposite of this would be koalas. So when we were in Australia, we went to a zoo and we got to hold a koala. They do not want to be held. They do not like it. They are not sort of nearly as cuddly or sweet as they look.
Well, manatees, on the other hand, are more cuddly than they look. They will come up and boop you with their nose while you're swimming with them. Manatee is good, koala bad. That is the lesson from today's episode, apparently.
They're still great, but they just don't want you to touch them. Leave them alone.
That's fair. Well, we were actually down there for a real reason, right?
Yes, the 2026 Safe Road Summit that whole region puts on every year, and it's been going on for a dozen years. It's one of the bigger road safety conferences in the world. So it was a good time.
It really was. I gave a keynote about how cities can prepare for autonomous vehicles. You talked about why streets get you killed so much, and then we did a recording. I'm not lying. And then we did a bonus episode, which folks should have in their podcast queue if they want it, with Greg Stewart, who runs the Broward County Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is super fun, just talking about some particular issues specific to South Florida transportation, one of the most dangerous parts of the country when it comes to travel, I believe.
Yeah, and that is a topic we definitely hit on that. And the audio turned out better than I thought. I spent more time editing it to get that up to snuff, but I think it works. So hopefully people will check that out.
Yeah, it was our first bonus episode, our first episode live, and it worked out pretty well. At least I thought. I had fun.
Yeah, I did too. But you're not there anymore. You're in someplace different. You're not in a place I recognize.
No, I am in a allegedly soundproof studio in the main airport of Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois.
What are you doing
there? Should I explain why? Whoa, Wes, what am I doing here?
What are you doing?
So Evanston is, obviously home to Northwestern. Northwestern has the best transportation library, I think, in the whole country. It's really an unbelievable asset and just collection of crazy stuff in the last 100 years. And I'm here because I got a generous research grant to, actually, I guess this is news for the podcast, to research the book I am writing, which is a new thing. Yes, you've already done it, Wes, so you can coach me through the process. But
he'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll see. But the topic is congestion pricing, and the tentative title is The Price of Traffic, and it'll be with MIT Press.
All right, I like it. I like the sound of that.
Yeah. I'm hoping to go into the history of congestion pricing and the case studies of the places that have tried it and its prospects for the future. Because, this is my first book. For those who don't know, I've written hundreds of articles. I've never actually written a book. And to me, this is, I think, the most exciting opportunity in transportation policy out there. it's just almost like a miracle drug. Congestion pricing is for improving quality of life in cities and raising public dollars and improving the environment, improving public health. You could go on and on. And we're recording this. We're just like 2 hours ago, Wes. I don't know if you saw this, but a federal judge basically told the Federal Highway Administration to screw off.
I did see
with
that,
their
yeah.
lawsuit against Governor Hochul in New York over congestion pricing in Manhattan. I mean, to me, the congestion pricing is just, the story of it is so exciting. Is like, this is actually a policy that really can make our lives better, and I'm hoping to delve into it.
You know what? I might read that book.
I read yours, so you really should.
All right. But you got me. You hooked me.
Yeah. So if people have crazy ideas or notions on congestion pricing studies I should look at, you can always find me online. It's not hard to find me. But I do just want to give a plug. Like, Northwestern is amazing as a transportation resource. There is, I don't know how many of our listeners are on Blue Sky, but Rachel Cole is the librarian of the Transportation Library here. And she has this amazing thread, which has bazillions of likes and follows going back 2 years. That's just of like wild reports that are in the archive here and really exist nowhere else. And it starts with one that's called Transporting Watermelons in Bulk and Bins by Truck. And it shows a watermelon in a truck going uphill, a giant-sized mutant watermelon. It's from, I don't know, the 70s or something. And it's sort of legendary among a certain group of transportation nerds. But maybe, Wes, you didn't know about this.
No, that is not in my wheelhouse. And I would have guessed the 70s would have been way too late. I would have guessed it would have been like the 40s.
It might. I actually don't know. It might be. But what was super cool is I came here yesterday, met Rachel, and she actually like showed me the original report, and I took a photo of it with her, and it got like bazillions of likes on Blue Sky. Everyone was really excited. Like, if you know, you know. And I'm just a little sad, Wes, that you did not know. You were like, why the hell does anybody care about this stupid watermelon?
No, I thought it was, that looks funny, but I didn't realize it was a backstory and a history and all that sort of stuff.
It's amazing. Yeah.
On social media, maybe enough, or maybe it feels like too much sometimes. It's just both at the same time all the time.
Well, we'll put in the show notes a link to Rachel's endless thread of amazing transportation reports. But if you want to nerd out here, I highly recommend it. Then that is why I'm in Evanston, Illinois, to answer your question.
That is a very good reason to be there, and I'm glad you're. And hopefully you don't have a full chapter about watermelons in your.
No, I mean, I always could, but watermelon's delicious. But I'm not planning on getting into it in the book yet. Let's put it that way.
All right. Looking forward to that. So today we're not following our usual protocols with Word on the Street and Roundabout. We're going to do an all mailbag podcast because the questions have been piling up. And the last handful of times, we've only been able to get to only a couple. A lot of times it feels like we run out of time. We get to about an hour before we have a chance to even answer a single question. So we have skipped that sort of part of it. So now we're going to go through that a little bit and try to discuss as many questions as we can squeeze in here.
Yeah, and let me just say, even though we may not reply to all the emails we get, we really do appreciate it when people write with questions, or they usually say nice things. I don't think we've gotten many hate. We've gotten like 2 emails saying you guys are morons over something, but very few. And for 98% of you, I probably deleted it before you saw it, but like most of you, the vast majority of you, we love to hear from you. We love to hear what you're thinking. So please keep the messages coming, whether it's questions or comments. And I'm glad we have some time now to delve into some of the questions we've received.
All right. So you want to go first? You got a question to start?
Yeah, sure. And I'm going to paraphrase this one and some of them as best I can. But Matt asked if we have any thoughts about the sovereignty implications of automotive transportation. He notes that there was a lot of discussion in the 70s about this, and he wonders if we have any thoughts about how transportation interacts with national sovereignty. I have thoughts on this. If you don't, I can respond.
So, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, you often hear that, freedom isn't free, which is the title of that song from, I guess, the Team America movie. But Like most,
That's where you go first is Team America. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
most of our recent wars are less about real freedom, and they're more about the freedom to drive. So it's more about oil and that. I mean, so if that is sort of what he's getting at with this, like how we treat sort of geopolitical issues in terms, I mean, a lot of it, like the underlying reason, sadly, is transportation. It's not like what it sort of used to be with like World War II and like fighting against Nazis, like it was back in the day. It's sort of a different thing. I don't know. It reminds me too of, I mean, there's more books than in the 70s, like the Newman Kenworthy books, the Sustainability in Cities, End of Automobile Dependence. I feel like they might have talked about some of that stuff in those books, but what do you think?
Well, I think the obvious place where national sovereignty and transportation really went hand in hand is the 70s, as Matt notes, when the oil crisis really struck.
Yeah.
And that was a deliberate move by OPEC to punish the West for supporting Israel. And that actually led directly to Denmark, for example, becoming a real biking hub, and the Netherlands sort of downplaying the role of urban automobile travel, because those countries were a lot less wealthy then than they are today, and they had to import gasoline, which was really expensive. And by sort of weaning their transportation network off of gas, they could be stronger countries and be able to sort of see more economic growth. And this was also a time, of course, when the U.S. had a national speed limit. It's a time when like right on red was legalized. It's ostensibly as a way of being able to save gasoline, although I think that's kind of BS-y. So there's clear history then. And I think today, well, I think two things. Number one, oil still matters to transportation. And I think that still gets us, the more you can sort of like disentangle the transportation network from oil, the more relatively invulnerable to shocks like that the country becomes. Although the U.S. now is more of I think we're an oil exporter, if I'm not mistaken, on net. So
yes,
it's a little different.
We are, yeah.
But with electric vehicles relying on batteries and battery tech relying on, like the rare earths. Well, now China sort of has us against the wall a little bit because they dominate so much. So there's a big effort underway in the U.S. to support mining all around the world in an effort to sort of inoculate the battery and not just batteries, but also microchips, the whole supply chain from China. And to me, that's a good example of how transportation and national sovereignty can intersect. I think they're still entangled pretty tightly.
You mentioned it inoculates. I mean, it does remind me of the COVID supply chain issues we had and the fact that all of a sudden we couldn't find toilet paper. So if you apply those same lessons to transportation, like the more we can do on our own, like the better off you are, the less you have to rely on whatever might happen with all this stuff.
Yeah, and transportation is just so essential to a national economy that, if a large chunk of our network is going to grind to a halt, it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And I think that, in the 70s, that was about gas-based cars. Now and in the future, it may be more about electric batteries. But I think there's always going to be some sort of interaction there. And I'm sorry to Matt that I can't point you toward like the great research work on this issue, but it's a good question to poke at and to try to understand, in my view.
All right. Let me go to the second question here. So this is one that didn't even come into the podcast email address. It came to me, but I thought it was a good question for the podcast. So this is from Megan in Missouri. And she wants to know what we think about the proposal. It's a proposed bill in Missouri called Bentley's Law. Do you know what this one is?
No,
have you heard of this? So it would require someone that's convicted of a DUI crash that killed a parent to pay child support for any surviving children. So there's like a grandmother there where she's taking care of her grandson now because his parents and his brother, I believe, were killed in a crash back in 2001. So this is a law that's on the books there. But it's also, I didn't even know this, there's, I think, a half dozen other states this is already a law. It started with Tennessee in 2022, and now there's a few other states that actually have this. So Kentucky, Texas, Maine, Louisiana, Utah, and South Dakota.
Wow. All right. I didn't know about this. This is all new to me. So you're catching me thinking
That's okay.
live. But here's my initial
the point of the podcast.
Well, sometimes I prepare, but
Okay.
with the mailbag one, it's hard, especially when it's a question that you just got privately. But my initial reaction is this sounds good, but I am skeptical. And I'll tell you why.
Of unintended
of the
consequences?
Of the value of the bill.
Okay.
From a societal perspective. Number one, we want less DUI. I'm not convinced that requiring drivers who get drunk and kill a parent or parents to pay child support is going to deter people from drinking and driving. I don't think there's going to be much of an effect there. I don't think that's how people make the calculations. People think they're better. They're better drunk drivers than they are. That said, of course,
there's plenty of consequences already. Like that, adding that to the list, I don't think it's going to change anyone's behavior from the get-go.
I don't think so.
Right.
You could still argue that it's the right thing to do. Even if it's not changing behavior, you should make whole or provide compensation for to support the child who is left without parents. But there's already liability and insurance payouts that would I would imagine cover a lot of money to support those children going forward. Like if you kill someone, I would think that you're talking about, and assuming you're insured, there's a massive payout that those children, I would assume, are going to get through the court system. Am I crazy to assume that?
Well, perhaps assuming people are insured is not always the case for sure. So
but if they're not insured, then I don't know how they could pay out how they could pay alimony anyway.
I mean, I guess you'd have to sue them for like manslaughter or for something like that. That is not a criminal, but what's even the term for it? But a
civil
case. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my point is, I mean, there is a big problem where you have someone who is not licensed, not insured, they drive drunk, they kill someone. It's very hard to get any kind of compensation, period. My point is, like, if you can't get compensation now through the current legal system, after when they kill an adult who's a parent, I don't know how you're gonna be able to get alimony from them, or not alimony, how you're gonna be able to get monthly payments to support raising a child from them.
I'm guessing it must be a problem. I mean, because if this grandmother's mother went out of her way to try to get this out there and is, I think Mothers Against Drunk Driving is really promoting it too. Yeah, I mean, obviously this grandmother is taking care of her 4-year-old grandson or such. Like, she is looking for more support in doing that, and she didn't get it through the initial court case or whatever else had happened. So maybe there is a need for it. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, I guess, but that's the thought process that I have, though, is number one, is it going to deter people? Probably not. Number two, is it going to provide money that would not otherwise be available and is appropriate to provide? I don't know. Because if you do have insurance and you have money and you get drunk and you kill someone, you're going to be paying a ton of money in liability, I would assume. So is over and above that, I don't know whether there's really a need for additional payments like this.
I mean, logically, it makes perfect sense that we would want to restore in this way. I mean, the other thing that comes to mind is the way that China does their liability issues. Like, if you kill somebody, you pay for their funeral. If you maim somebody, you pay for their care for sort of the rest of eternity. So, I mean, one of the unintended consequences of that is that there are documented cases of this, and I've had some Chinese students in my classroom that have said this is a real thing, that if somebody runs somebody over, a funeral's way cheaper than, wheelchairs and all the care that comes needed with severe injuries. So people will run over somebody, including kids, multiple times to sort of make sure that they're dead and not just severely injured. So it seems insane. I had a hard time when I first was reading about this years ago, even believing it's true, but it's been shown to be a fact. So, like playing that out here, like if you are drunk and you hit a family in a car and you kill most of them, like sadly, you might be better off killing the rest of them. Like it's insane, but could it happen? Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. I think the maybe the takeaway here is that I'm sure that this idea plays very well. Of course, like, killing a parent when you're drunk is terrible and horrible. But I think
killing anybody,
anybody. But I think it's worth thinking hard before immediately jumping to say like this is a law that does good more than harm. I don't know.
Yeah, and now that there are like a half dozen states that have it, I'd be curious to see what's happened.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone has studied this, and it might be too soon to have because it's only been a few years in most of these places. So yeah, I think it's worth checking out to see if this is, because there's going to be probably good and bad. They should look both ways at this issue.
Thank you for that, Wes. That was that was clever.
Your turn.
All right. Let's go over to Sterling from British Columbia. Hello, Sterling. And Sterling asks, and I quote, "What is the deal about bus rapid transit? Is it a reasonable substitute for a subway?" Wes, what do you think?
So I think it is where I would start. Like if your city has probably, pretty good bus service, it's used, and you want to take the next step, I don't think I would jump into doing a subway. I think I would start with the BRT and like see if you can really, up the frequency and up the preemption and up the transit signal priority and, really make it something that you get a large number of people on, because there is a threshold at which the numbers of riders where it makes more sense to have a subway than BRT. But BRT is so much less expensive than a subway is. So there's other flexibility built in. And I know, there's sort of land, like the way the land might be developed around a subway might be different than a BRT. But still, I think the BRT is kind of a stepping stone. And for a lot of cities, it is the end all be all. And it's been successful in places like Curitiba and Bogota. But like even those places are finding once they get to a certain threshold of people that a subway might make more sense.
Mm-hmm. I think that feels right. And there's lots of examples of BRT being very successful in the U.S. too, like Richmond, Virginia is a good example with the Pulse, I believe it's called. But let's just keep in mind, BRT is not always created equal. Sometimes the label is slapped onto bus service that isn't really rapid.
That's true.
So I think we got to be really clear. We're talking about dedicated lanes. We're talking about ideally like off-board payments, so you're not slowing down to pay everywhere. You have relatively few stops, and simply saying
and the stops are more like stations. Like it's not. They're going to be flush with like the bus, and so it is. It feels more like a subway at grade. And sort of all the way we designed it. And Colorado's been notorious for sort of calling things BRT. There wasn't really BRT, but now we're finally in the midst of building real BRT along Colfax. So it's been sort of a mess construction-wise, but every time I go past there, it's getting more and more real. And it looks so different than anything you would imagine just being like a bus stop. Like these are real stations in the middle of the street.
Yeah, I think... I think I'd say to Sterling, BRT can be great, but you need to hold your leaders accountable. Don't let them get away with using that term for just a bus lane with, where the bus is painted differently or, has like a partially dedicated route that's not even fully dedicated. And what really you should have, and it's not legal in every state, but it should be, is automatic enforcement too, so that cars that violate the law and use the bus lane automatically get a ticket. You can have bus-mounted cameras to do that, which a number of cities now have, including Oakland and LA and DC and New York. And, all those elements are really critical. But if you have them all, I'd say, BRT is very competitive with subways in almost everywhere in the U.S. because we just don't have enough density and ridership potential to justify many new subway lines in most North American places, not everywhere. Arguably, you could make the case in Philadelphia on Roosevelt Avenue and I think a few other places, but by and large, BRT would be a much more, I don't know, if scalable solution.
Yes, I totally agree. All right, so I got a question from Frank in Montreal.
Ah,
Frank grew up in small northern Ontario town, so go Sudbury Bulldogs, and now he can never live in those type of places. So he says, "Give me public transit, bike lanes, and car share, or give me death." That is not his question. So his question plays off of our discussion about rural
just for the
AVs.
record, Frank is Canadian and he's paraphrasing like Patrick Henry from Virginia in his line. So Frank, as an American, God bless. Go ahead. Sorry, Wes.
So he liked the rural AV discussion, and he says that if rural AVs really had all the benefits we outlined in our discussions, you would think that insurance companies might want to step in and subsidize the cost of deploying a small fleet. So, like, would the savings that they might experience due to lower payouts and such, like, really make up for it and like be something that an insurance company might be willing to put money into?
Maybe. In my experience, insurance companies are very conservative. I just did a long Q&A with the AV lead at the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety, published in Bloomberg, if people are curious, where he was making these points. Insurance companies are really conservative. In general, they don't feel like they have anywhere near enough data to lower insurance rates for AVs compared to human-driven cars. Theoretically, they might in places like rural America, where there certainly are, there are crashes, and there are certain types of crashes, like single vehicle crashes, that occur much more frequently. But that's like, I don't know how much that's really going to dictate the overall financial decision an AV company is going to make to go into rural America. You can save maybe some money on insurance, but you still have to spend a lot on operations and on the upfront fixed cost of just mapping all these roads that are relatively sparsely used.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say that these insurance companies aren't losing money. Like, even though they probably do have payouts in rural areas, like they're already making money. So it would be, a lot of interesting math to try to figure out how, if they invested in it, and like the amount of investment they'd have to actually put into it. Like, these AV companies are pouring billions of dollars into it. Like, so an insurance company throwing in even like 100 million is going to feel like a drop in the bucket to them. Like, so it would have to be a massive investment to change like the direction that those companies are going to try to put more into the rural areas. So, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing that being like a real possibility.
Yeah, Frank, your instinct is good. I think it's a good question. I just don't think the magnitude of the savings is enough to move the needle very much, candidly. That's what I would say.
And Frank also wants to tell us that his rail drink of choice is a 3-olive dirty vodka martini.
Well, thank you. That's some foreshadowing for where we'll be going in a little while. Although I do not have a martini here in the library at Northwestern University, for the record.
It's not really my kind of drink either.
No. All right. I think my turn, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Gary asks, how many accidents are caused by the placement of headlights? And do you think we will ever see any relief? What do you think?
So caused by is hard to say, right? So I don't think we can get into how many are caused by, but I will say that headlights are not designed to help you see like where a bicyclist would be on a road, or where even pedestrians might be. They're not set up to aim towards like pedestrian height. Like, they're designed so as not to annoy drivers coming towards you. Like, that's why headlights are designed the way they do. So there are things like adaptive headlights that like turn as you turn, that would be able to see like a pedestrian in the perpendicular crosswalk or a bicyclist there, but they're only sort of on like higher end cars. They're not very common, nor are they required. And I mean, so headlights could be done so much better than they are now. I think that's the bigger picture point. So who knows how many accidents they're causing, crashes they're causing, but they're not helping as much as they could.
Well, there's a lot of chatter online that I'm seeing about how headlights are getting brighter. Have you been following this, like LED headlights?
No, but when we were in Florida, I saw a bumper sticker that said, "I hate LED headlights." I was like, oh, that's an oddly
So
specific like thing to say on a bumper sticker.
yeah, it is. It's oddly specific, but what's interesting is like, I don't know. I feel like I spend a little too much time online at certain points when I'm procrastinating or whatever. And you know how like you pick up on things. Like for example, people freaking hate infotainment screens. People hate them. They really want to go back to buttons and knobs. And anytime
Yes.
I post or somebody else posts about infotainment screens and how bad they are, people go berserk and like, yeah, I freaking hate those things. I always knew they were bad, blah, blah, blah. And I actually think this thing about the headlights is sort of in the same category. People lose their minds when somebody complains about the brightness of car headlights these days. Something's going on that there is a groundswell of frustration and angst about this. So I think Gary is not the only one who's sort of like annoyed about this or frustrated about it. It feels like there's something bubbling up.
So is the frustration you're hearing, is it from sort of the other driver's perspective, like they hate the brightness? Or is it really from the pedestrian bicyclist perspective,
I
how
think it's
like
both.
these really aren't designed to help the cause in terms of their safety?
I think it's both. I think that this is not an issue that pits drivers necessarily against those outside the car. I think drivers feel like they're getting blinded by oncoming lights as well. At least that's what I'm picking up on. This is anecdotal. I want to be clear. I haven't seen I think there might be research out there on it. I just haven't really looked in detail. But the vibes are not great for America's headlight industry, I would say. People are annoyed at you, and they're starting to get mad. Like that person with the bumper sticker you saw in Fort Lauderdale.
Yes. All right. So I have a question from Josh in Golden, Colorado. So lately he's heard that a few people saying that congestion makes streets more dangerous because it causes people to drive more aggressively and take risky maneuvers. Like to him, it sounds like the DOT talking point just to help them widen more roads in order to fight congestion. So is there any research or thinking behind the DOT's point that we need to solve congestion to help with safety?
Well, I also really love the one that we have to widen highways. It sounds like the argument for state duty is we have to widen the highway to improve the environment, because then cars will flow more freely and then they won't be polluting so much because they're stuck in traffic. I love that talking point. So yeah, to Josh, this one you may know, Wes, of specific research. But first of all, let's be clear. In New York City with congestion pricing, the data is clear there. There's there's faster traffic, there's less congestion, and crashes have gone down. That may be because there's just less exposure. There's fewer cars, period. So there's less collisions in that way. But it's interesting. I guess I could see it either way, because intuitively, congestion simply makes vehicles move more slowly, and physics dictates that slower moving vehicles are going to cause less harm when they collide. So I guess maybe congestion pricing is a special case because you're actually reducing total exposure to cars. In general, slower moving things are going to cause fewer crashes. That's what I would say. Wes, what do you think?
Yeah, so if we define safety as fatal and severe injury crashes rather than just fender benders, like the research says the opposite of what the DOT is saying, that a little congestion is a good thing for safety. And I think the older research especially shows that it's an inverse relationship to what the DOT is saying. I think the more recent research, I can't remember the paper offhand, but it's really sort of more of a U-shape. Like you get worse safety with low congestion because speeds are high and stuff like that. You get your best safety with like moderate to high traffic congestion. And then you might get some of the problems with driver frustration and more complex interactions and stuff at like very high levels. But it's still not all that simple because you get other safety benefits, I think, at those very high levels of traffic congestion, like people switching to other safer modes, like people wanting to like live and work in more location efficient places. And that reduces the exposure. So it's not that simple.
I'm curious, Wes, how do you think of, I mean, this is just documented that crashes are down in New York following congestion pricing. Do you have any way of interpreting that?
Yeah, I think part of it is exposure. Like, so there's going to be
that's what I think too.
less VMT. So stuff like that can play a role for sure. I think I've always sort of said that a little bit of congestion is a good thing. Like, if your city doesn't have traffic congestion, you kind of have a crappy city. So trying to solve that for the sake of safety is just not true. Like, unless you're at some of like the highest levels of traffic congestion in the world. We saw the opposite. Like, during early COVID, like we kind of solved traffic congestion, and guess what? Road safety got way worse.
I was just thinking, like, if the state DOT says congestion is bad for road safety, and then uses that as an argument for congestion pricing, I would say, oh, that's interesting. However, I bet that's not what they're saying. They're saying this is why we need to widen the frickin' highway to open up the traffic. It's yet another. That's my instinct, is that state DOTs that make this claim are looking for a reason to be able to do what they want to do, which is to spend a lot of money on building a highway or widening it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. So I don't know. I can find some research that points to the opposite of what the DOT is saying for sure. It's like, so congestion, getting rid of it is not going to help safety in sort of the ways that they're telling you, Josh.
That makes sense. Why don't we go to Charlie in Maryland? Okay. And Charlie says that his son, age unknown and name unknown, would like to know what our favorite interchanges are. And he's a big fan of Swindon's Magic Roundabout. I had to Google Swindon's Magic Roundabout. Did you already know about it?
You don't know that one? Like,
I didn't.
I show that to my students. Like,
well, why is it so magical? Now I know. Why is it so magical for those who don't know?
Well, there's one big roundabout in the middle, and is it 5 or 7 little roundabouts that like surround it? So in order to get into the roundabout, you go through these like, there's 5 like streets coming into the big roundabout, and there's a little roundabout on each one, and then there's a big roundabout in the center of all these. So it's sort of amazing that you can traverse the entire outskirts of the roundabout without going to the big one, or you can skip all the little ones and go right to the middle. Like, it is wild.
Well, that's why it's called magical, apparently. You're the traffic engineer, Wes, so I feel like this is one for you. What are your favorite intersections or interchanges?
So, I'm thinking about this more on the intersection level than interchange. So one of my favorites would be, have you ever been to the 7 Dials intersection in London?
No, I haven't.
So it's a intersection where there's 7 streets come into this, and there's this tiny little roundabout in the middle with like a monument there. I think it's a sundial, and like you can sit sort of on the edge of the monument. So I remember my PhD advisor and myself were in London like in 2007 for a conference, and we sat there in the middle of this roundabout for like an hour, because in every corner there's like 7 corners there that you can see. There's bars and all sorts of stuff. It's such a fascinating, slow-moving, people watching. There's pedestrians everywhere. So that's one. The other ones that come to mind is that the intersection in Drachten, the Netherlands, that you know this story where Hans Monderman came to town?
Yeah, I do.
Like, at one point, it was like the most dangerous intersection in town, and it had just the typical street light. He came in and he made it a shared space with a roundabout, and it became like the safest intersection. Like, they never had a fatality since. Like, I haven't checked the numbers lately, but it sort of became most dangerous to the safest. And
that's cool.
Like, the other ones that come to mind is just, places like the north end of Boston, like Hanover Street. Like, any intersection along that street is sort of amazing. Like, it's all just this crazy chaos of people and cars and all sorts of stuff. I think part of it is the land use there sort of makes it, and like the narrowness of those streets and like those intersections make it fun. Yeah. So what about you? What are your thoughts?
No, North End is great. I only really have one that comes to mind as a favorite intersection, because I don't really think in terms of favorite intersections. I don't think. I'm not an engineer, but I have one. Have you been to Tokyo, Wes?
I have not. No. I know what you're talking about, though. That did come to mind, too. Yeah.
The Shibuya intersection is wild. This is like a major transit hub in a downtown part, or it's a major business district of Tokyo. And it's wild because I think it's like, I don't even remember how many roads come together there. It's more than a 4-way intersection. It's like 6 or 8. I can't even remember. But what's cool is it's pedestrians everywhere. And then all the traffic stops and people walk every which way, across, side to side, all over the place. And it's amazing because it's hundreds of people walking at one time. But what's super cool and is just mesmerizing, it has like the best view of a Starbucks I've ever seen, because you can go up to this, I don't know, second or third story Starbucks in a department store, or that's looking out over the intersection and just watch this like sidewalk ballet, as Jane Jacobs might call it. Although she referred to other things when she really meant sidewalk ballet. To me, it's sidewalk ballet, where everybody is walking and then everything stops and the cars move again. Then everyone's walking. And it's honestly kind of mesmerizing. I've never wanted to hang out in a Starbucks as long as I did there, to tell you the truth.
It is the biggest barns dance the world has ever seen, that intersection.
That's what's called, Barnes Dance. Thank you. Barnes Dance. I was trying to find the word. Barnes Dance. That is that is the only one I could think of that came to mind.
All right. That's fine. So I have a question from Colin in LA. So Colin wants to know what we think about the policing and regulating of bike lanes for those that may not be on a bike. So in the bike lanes in LA, he sees a wide range of, you got the analog bikes, e-bikes, skateboarders, scooters, roller skaters, one-wheelers, whatever it is. And, some are going like 20 plus miles an hour on like the scooters and the e-bikes. A lot of them are going slower. And it has, he says, drawn special consternation from the neighbors. So what do you think?
Oh, Colin, you're asking a really hard question, but a really important one. So have you followed, Wes, the whole controversy in the Netherlands over fat tire bikes?
A little bit. I haven't heard much of it the last couple of weeks, but yeah.
No, I mean, it's been going on for a few months now, but the Netherlands, of course, is a biking mecca, and increasingly there are people buying these sort of like very fast, not officially e-bike two-wheelers that, are really problematic when they're on a bike lane, or riding, not even a bike lane in the Netherlands necessarily, just riding alongside families who are just on a regular bike, because they're going so much faster and the bikes are a good bit bigger. So I think in the US, we talked about in a previous episode how there's been a sort of bike lash in New Jersey and some other states against these sort of like really fast two-wheelers that are not e-bikes. They go much faster than 20 or 25 miles per hour, but they look kind of like e-bikes and they're really problematic. So I think this is a serious problem, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Now I've heard like engineers talk about how there should be some sort of like regulation based on like mass and velocity, which I think is insane. Like, good luck getting policymakers to actually do anything like that.
We love doing that with cars, right?
Yeah, I was like, that's great. Like, I cannot think of a more ivory tower-ish kind of solution to our safety problems in this country. But no, I frankly do think we need to have enforcement, and this gets very weighted very fast because people who are riding these super fast two-wheelers are often minorities, who are, of course, facing a lot of issues in the U.S. right now with the federal government. So people get very antsy about it. But the fact of the matter is, if we don't do something about having these really fast vehicles on bike lanes, we're effectively ceding this infrastructure to people who really shouldn't be there, because what parent is going to feel comfortable taking their 5-year-old on a bike ride if someone's going to be zooming past at 30 miles per hour? I think we need to have human-based enforcement to keep that from happening.
Or maybe we need a second bike lane. On the highway, we have a passing lane. Like, maybe we need a passing lane for bikes. Like, we have sort of a slow lane to the right. I mean, I when you think about
I don't know, man. If we're going to have a bigger
streets, it's going to be based on speed. Like, you want all the kind of vehicles that are going about the same speed in the same lanes, and you want, right? So maybe there'll be lanes like, if the speed limit for cars is 30 and there's bikes going 30, like maybe they should be with those cars, and the slower bike should be somewhere else with the other slower traffic, right? Like, when I'm everyone sort of, a lot of cities don't allow biking on the sidewalk, but if you're going the speed of pedestrian, like, to me, that's fine. That's where you should be as a bicyclist.
I mean, would we ideally have like this term like slow lanes for vehicles that are like slower than a car and faster than a scooter or a slow bike? Sure. I've heard people like Gabe Klein argue for that.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is we're not going to be expanding our bike lane network in this country, in the US, anytime soon. We don't have the space for it. So it's sort of idealistic, I think. Like the reality is, and frankly, if we could expand the bike lane network, I'd want to widen the lane so that we could have cargo bikes before I'd
Yeah.
be really excited about these sort of really fast two-wheelers, to be candid with you. I just think these things may not belong anytime soon, frankly.
You're right. I mean, I would definitely put my eggs in other baskets first. This is not where I would start, but it's a good question, and it's a thing that cities are dealing with, like especially when you have sort of a parking protected bike lane and you have the driver's side dooring on the side of, like when you have the fast e-bikes going past, drivers or like kids getting out of the back seat trying to cross that bike lane to get to the sidewalk. Like that's when it starts feeling more and more problematic to me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. It's a good question. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do one more and then you might have a final one. Is that fair?
Sure. I think we can do that. What do you got?
Let's see. Why don't we go? I liked RJ's question. I'm going to ask RJ's question. RJ asked, what concrete steps do we need to take so that transit agencies can unlock the value of the land they serve? What will it take for U.S. transit agencies to act a bit more like Japan and embrace commercial development as a tool to aid in funding their operations and development?
It goes to value capture, right? I mean, this is something that
Yeah.
transportation agencies were doing all over the place 100 years ago. Like, this is how we built the railroads. This is how we built a lot of stuff. The highways, like, there's a lot of that being done. But over time, it shifted from, the entity or agency or company putting in the infrastructure that's reaping the benefits of the value capture of that land that the new transportation is accessing, shifting to sort of private entities taking the value from the agencies that are putting in like the highways or the trains or whatever it is. Like, so like it's probably 10 years ago. There's a lot of research. I feel like it was out of Texas, like looking at how they could fund and a complete transit system based on value capture. Like if that agency like could buy the land up and then put the transit into those places, and then they could reap the benefits of the value created, like that could fund the transit. So it didn't really come to anything, but it makes perfect sense, right? I mean, why can't we do this more? And I know other countries are doing a lot more of this and doing it well, but I don't know, we've sort of disconnected the two.
Yeah, I think East Asia is really where this happens the best that I know of. RJ talks about Japan, which is right. Like if you see these malls that are atop the major transit hubs in Tokyo, it's pretty incredible. And Hong Kong, I think, is famous for its real estate development with the transit line. If memory serves, the Hong Kong transit system isn't subsidized at all because it makes so much money from real estate, or it has, and the transit fares are actually quite affordable too as a result. I don't know. I love the concept, but I'll be honest with you. I feel like I'm going to get eggs thrown at me by some of our listeners when I say this. As supportive as I am of density and a lot of development around transit stops, I don't have great confidence in our transit agencies as real estate developers in the U.S. I don't think it's their skill set.
That's fair.
I don't know that they know how to do it. I don't know that it's going to go well. I would much rather, I think, see governments, local governments, and transit agencies work together to empower private developers to go tall in new developments, which is something that TransLink has done very effectively in Vancouver, as I understand it, like building really tall on these fast-growing suburbs like Surrey, where there's a big transit hub and you can see towers being erected there that are driving ridership growth there.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds nice. Like, I know when I first got here to Denver, like, the TODs were a joke. Like, so transit-oriented developments, they were just park and rides. And, like, what I heard, like, right before I got here, I think the head of the agency said that RTD, our regional transit agency, they only do the T. Like, the development is for somebody else. And like the problem that I still see today, especially with like all these places that are like instituting, sort of laws to try to get more dense housing around high capacity transit. The cities don't want to do this. Like they're not stepping up and like allowing for the compactness you would need to have an actual TOD or even the type of land uses. Like, I remember being in Sydney, like a lot of the subway stations were like, it's like a mini mall down there. And I guess it was the transit agency that was sort of the landlord of these places. And it was kind of awesome. But I don't know, like how you do that, how do we get cities on board too? So yes, it needs to be a lot of people, agencies, cities, municipalities coming together to do it. But I've just not seen it done well very often, like here, at least in this country.
Yeah, I haven't really either. And I don't know. I feel like we distract our transit agencies with so many other priorities. And I would like to see them focus on improving operations, like just help people move, quickly, regular, like have fast, frequent, reliable service. That's what I really want them to focus on 24/7 because we're not very good at it right now. Like walk before you run,
And I see Jeff Wood of the Overhead Wire in our chat saying like the point should be like trying to keep the value instead of letting others extract it from us. Like that.
Okay.
Is what we've been doing wrong sort of all this time, right?
Yeah, and that's right. So you basically do like an air rights deal where the transit agency can get some money but not do the actual development itself. Sure, like that could make sense to me. Point well taken. But I don't know. I feel like I just want to get the basics right first. I'm sorry, Jeff. We love Jeff Wood of the Overhead Wire, but those are my initial thoughts. All right. You have a last point, am I right?
Well, I have a last. I guess it's kind of a question. No, it's not really a question, but it was a good email we got, and I feel like it's worth including in the mailbag. So it's from Scott in St. Louis. So he was recently reading a book. In the background, he had on an early episode of Murder, She Wrote. And it suddenly caught his full attention. Season 1, episode 6 is called Hit, Run, and Homicide.
By the way, do you want to explain what Murder, She Wrote is? Because I don't know that a lot of our listeners are going to know.
I mean, it was my grandmother's favorite show. So, and my grandmother's been dead for 20 plus years. Like
Angela Lansbury, right?
Angela Lansbury. She was solving crimes. I don't think I ever really watched it, but it was, always on CBS after 60 Minutes. Like, I just remember the commercials popping up in that time slot. So it was,
maybe Barry Weiss will bring it back. It's like, back when America was great. We all were watching these old shows or something. Sorry, keep going. Go ahead. I'm listening to you.
All right. So it first aired in November of 1984. So Angela Lansbury, I think her character's name was Jessica. So okay. Jessica and the police are baffled by a driverless car, or seemingly driverless, that suddenly appears in their town, and it runs down a visitor who had fired local inventor Dan O'Brien. So it turns out that an inventor, his name is Van Johnson, which reminds me of Reginald Vell Johnson of, Die Hard and Family Matters fame, but that's another story. So it turns out that this supposedly driverless car was remote driven, which is not that different than some of the news coming out now.
This is a prescient episode, seriously. Like, yeah. Was it remote driven by somebody in Manila? Because in that case, it basically predicted Waymo. But go ahead.
So I think, Angela Lansbury's character and Van Johnson are having a conversation. And Van Johnson's like, remote control cars, nothing new about that. I designed one a dozen years ago. I got the plans in my workshop somewhere. And then Jessica's like, well, what would a car like that ever be used for? And he goes through all the things like automotive testing, military maneuvers, motion picture stunts. It would be a great boon for people like you, Jess, people who don't drive. You could get in your car, program your destination, the computer would take you there. And she says that sounds wonderful, but it's a bit far-fetched. And then I think that Van's wife says it's a wonderful concept. No more highway accidents. Like, this car is built-in self-protection system against the collisions. And then they're like, well, how come this never happened? And that's what his point is. Like, we're not doing it because human lives aren't worth a damn. So the episode then moves on to her solving this crime. And they find out that the person controlling this vehicle is trying to murder people and trying to do so in order to get the plans for this vehicle. So it's a complicated plot to basically secure the rights of the driverless car's plans. That was the email. Like, those are our listeners. There's no question here whatsoever. But
I guess the only question is, why aren't we all watching this particular episode of Murder, She Wrote to understand how people were thinking about autonomous vehicles in the 1980s? I mean, I think I didn't know about this, and that's really interesting and cool. And we love hearing like funny little stories like that from listeners. I will note that there's a long history of sort of chatter, especially in on the screen in the U.S., about driverless cars. Like in the 1950s, I think Peter Norton has shared this.
Yep.
There was a video by General Motors talking about how driving in the future would be basically like air traffic control, with a guy saying, like, oh, you're clear to go da-da-da-da, and the car like basically brings you wherever you want to go. And it also had, I believe, an ice cream maker in the car itself, along with being autonomous, because it's the 1950s, and that's what the future had to keep going. It's like you have an ice cream shop in your car.
ice cream in every car.
Yeah. So my point is just that, like, this idea has been batted around for a long time, not just from the Jetsons, you know. Well, Jetsons about flying cars, not driverless
Jetsons,
cars.
the flying cars, yeah.
Excuse me. But yeah, no, there's a long history, and what's interesting to me about the Murder, She Wrote stuff is just how many of the little mini talking points there really do reflect what we hear today. That's wild.
Oh yeah, an episode like this could come out today, like with the same basic plot points, without changing too much.
I mean, did you watch Silicon Valley, the show, when it was
Yes.
It was up a few years ago? Do you remember one of the early episodes with the driverless car that like brings the guy into like a shipping container and won't get him out or something? Like, it basically traps the guy inside.
Vaguely, do you remember?
No, this was before Waymo or anybody else was around. And like, you know, what's interesting is like, It seems like it's channeled in this Murder, She Wrote episode too. There's this base sense of fear with the whole concept that these shows seem to tap into. And, you know, maybe that's why, you know, the Google car had the big friendly puppy eyes at first. Maybe that's all why they do stuff like this.
Oh, and speaking of murderous cars, I mean, there's that. I can't remember which of the Fast and the Furious movies it was, but like the bad guy, I think it was Charlize Theron. She takes control of all the cars and she sends it after like the heroes. All the cars are attacking Dom and whoever else is fighting on the good side of that movie.
I think you know more about the Fast and Furious than I do. I'll keep up with you for the 80s movies references, but once you get more modern with Hollywood, I get lost. I'm sorry.
No, it's actually, I did watch all of those when I was in Australia. Like, they happen to be on whatever streaming service. So my time over there, it's like, you know what? I'll watch some of the Fast and Furious. Before that, I'd only seen the first one, which was actually a pretty good movie. After that, It gets more and more ridiculous. Including the one where she takes control of it. They weren't autonomous cars, but she somehow controls all the cars because there's so much technology that lets her do so, and they become autonomous through her evil plan.
Yeah, she's a very talented woman, Charlize Theron.
Yes, she is. All right, so we end each episode with a toast, which we call rail drinks. So what are you drinking tonight in the library? And why?
Well, I snuck a drink in. I should be drinking Malort in Chicago, but I didn't have time to get it. So I saw this coming, though. So I just sort of grabbed what I could get onto the flight in D.C. and snuck into the airport. And snuck it into the library. Excuse me. I have something I've had for years that I brought all the way to Chicago to drink with you, Wes. I have Bjork liqueur from Icelandic birch. I'm not even kidding. This has been in my cabinet for years, and I have no idea what's going to happen when I drink it with you, because It's birch liqueur. God, there's actually a little twig in it. Can you see that? There's a twig in my Icelandic birch liqueur.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm going to be drinking because that's what I could grab. Go ahead.
Being in Chicago, I thought you'd be drinking like an old style. I thought you'd go.
No, Malort. I would do Malort, but I didn't have time. I was in a rush to get here. Go ahead.
I am drinking a Bell's Two Hearted IPA, which I believe Bell's is in Michigan. This is actually one of my favorite, like, simple, regular IPAs. Like,
is that from Kalamazoo?
It's a good one. I think it's somewhere near there. I don't think it's quite Kalamazoo, but it's in that vicinity.
Yeah, no, it's a good beer.
It's a good beer.
All right. Well, as always, good to see you. Cheers.
Good to see you too.
Oh, that's weird. I don't know how I feel about that. I think you may have chosen more wisely. So when are we doing this again?
St. Patty's Day. So March 17th, same time. I guess I'm assuming you'll be in a different place, but you can find us in the same place on YouTube Live and then afterwards on YouTube and all the podcast platforms.
So 6 p.m. Eastern if you want to join us live on that's the 17th. Is that right? I have it right.
Yeah, no, that's right. I believe that's a Tuesday. So
good. And people can, by the way, if we appreciate again the questions, please do feel free to send us more. We will do more mailbag in the future. It's lookbothwayspod@gmail.com.
All right. I'll see you next time.
See you guys.